Hello and welcome to the If We Knew Then podcast. I'm Steven Sachs.
And I'm Lori Sachs.
And today we're joined by Miki Vuckovich from USA Skateboarding and the Skateboarding For All initiative.
We met Miki at a Play LA event here in Los Angeles, California, where they had set up a clinic that was an inclusive clinic for skateboarding for all. And that's what their initiative is called, Skateboarding for All. And as I stood in line with my daughter and I watched not only the diverse and inclusive environment they had created for all children to participate, it was the manner in which they were supporting these kids and celebrating their achievements. We can all relate to different events that perhaps don't actually push our children to their potential or celebrate with them these accomplishments, allow them to see their ability and that they can maybe do something new or learn something new. Allow parents to watch their children be supported and attain a new goal, find a new passion or something fun. Just the joy on everyone's face that was participating. We went into this conversation thinking, this is a great program about inclusion that I want to highlight and put out in the world. There's an event coming up that I want to let everybody know about because it sounds fun. And
yeah, we'll have some links to it in the show notes, but it's December 11th in Carlsbad, California, and you can also watch it virtually for free. But this episode is so much more than just about that event.
This conversation leaves me wishing that the world was a skate park.
Yes.
Because what we found in this conversation was the dynamic metaphor for inclusion and humanity. And I'm left with such joy and delight this afternoon.
I hope you are as beautifully affected by this conversation with Miki as we were.
So welcome, Miki Vuckovich. Good morning, Miki. Thanks for joining us today.
Great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate being on with you guys today. This is exciting.
So we met at a Play LA event. It's the first time we've attended that event, but this is an event that is about inclusion and including all kids in sports. And that's where I came across your skate clinic. And so I wanted to talk to you about that today because one of the things that really struck me about your clinic and the entire event was just the inclusion. And one of my favorite things that I saw, though, it wasn't inclusion as in, hey, look, we're being inclusive. It was just inclusion without focus on difference or ability or anything like that. So I wanted to have you on because we like to celebrate those things in the community because I believe that voice and that conversation being out there is hope about change. And so I wanted to talk to you about your clinic and your organization.
Thanks. That was a really wonderful day. It'd been a while since I myself had been out to a skate clinic and a skate event like that with brand new skateboarders. I mean, these were kids who hadn't had the opportunity previously. And that's exactly what at USA Skateboarding, we're striving for with our new Skateboarding For All initiative. It sounds like a slogan, but really it's sort of when we were talking about as an organization, what can we do post-Olympics? Now that some of the pressure is off to organize a team and prepare, what kind of an impact can we have? It's about opening that door and letting all kids understand that they can be skateboarders. They don't necessarily need to aspire to be Olympians because that's not the true benefit of skateboarding. The true benefit of skateboarding is pursuing your own path and your own sort of trajectory within it, wherever that may take you. And there's a myriad forms of skateboarding. What you see in the Olympics is just the two dominant forms of park skateboarding and street skateboarding. And I can speak from personal experience as a skateboarder of 40 plus, having been in it 40 plus years. You don't need to be a champion to make it, a big part of your life and a focus. And in my case, it's been part of my career path, but it's a personal pursuit. Skateboarding ultimately is about your relationship with your skateboard, right? You and this object and what you can do with it. And everybody's sort of on that same path with their own skateboarding. And when you come together at a skate park or an event like this, suddenly you're seeing other people's own interpretations of it. And you pay attention, you see what they're doing, you're seeing different nuances of how different people stand on their board or what they do with it. And that's the beauty of it, is because everybody brings their own thing to it. They own their own personal approach, their own personality to skateboarding, regardless of their ability or their level, right? It's an expression. And so, it's not about technique or ability or who's doing what trick. It's about how they're doing it. And that's what I think skateboarders really appreciate in one another. And so when you have an event like this, where you're bringing in a group of kids, particularly a group of kids who have never skateboarded, you're seeing their own adaptation to it, in this case for the first time. And particularly when they're brand new at it, you're seeing them achieve their very first accomplishments on a skateboard. You're seeing them go from in some cases terrified to just elated, right? Because they've navigated over an obstacle, or they've made a turn, or they didn't fall off, whatever that accomplishment is. You just see that, and that kind of energy is infectious, right? And when you have a bunch of people in that same sort of area doing the same thing, it just starts to spread around, and it just like a pinball machine, all that energy just bounces around. And that's what I think really created that situation, that scenario that we saw at Play LA, was just kids lighting up with their first experience on a skateboard. And that went for, the adaptive session we had earlier in the day to, all the kids that came throughout that day. And they were so psyched. There were several kids who, after finishing their session, because we had one-on-one instruction with instructors, they got off the course and they went right back in line to come through again. And they had to wait, probably 20 minutes. The line got pretty long at one point. But, we made sure that every kid had their time and the undivided attention of a professional coach. So it was amazing. And that's just the magic of skateboarding. And I anticipated that going into the event, but, when I saw it actually happen, it was like, great. It's still there. Skateboarding is still doing its magic, across the spectrum in terms of kids, in terms of backgrounds and abilities and challenges. And, it's just something about it that just, attracts and inspires kids. And it did so for me as a youth. And I've seen it over the decades, continue to get kids going. And we certainly saw that in LA.
When you're talking about what you saw that day about kids being able to, have their first experience with support, fall off, get back on again. I just, as you're talking about it, to me, that's the argument that I give every time I go to fight for my son's education. Is this is what inclusion is allowing every child a place with the supports, and then watching them navigate it for the first time and experience it and grow, like giving them that opportunity. And that's what I thought was, it's such a beautiful metaphor for everything that us parents really, I hesitate to use the word fight, but it's what we pursue and advocate for. And that's what I loved so much. I feel like we have to backtrack a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with skating, and then also Skateboarding USA, because it's more than just what this inclusive program. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So USA Skateboarding is the USOPC designated national governing body for skateboarding. That's a mouthful, but USOPC is the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. And so we are the organization in the United States that organizes and supports the U.S. national skateboarding team and the U.S. Olympic skateboarding team. So that's the typical role of a national governing body, or an NGB. If you ask any skateboarder what a national governing body is, they'd be like, "What are you talking about? No one governs us," And that's true. And so it's kind of a strange name, but in our case, this is an NGB for skateboarding. In our mind, it isn't so much a national governing body as it is a national go-to body, right? So we're here to fulfill our role in identifying, organizing, supporting the U.S. national team and international competitions, including the Olympics. But we early on recognized, back in 2003, when we first organized, long before getting the designation from the USOPC, we included in our mission statement language that, not only dedicated us to supporting the national team, but to supporting the community and the culture of skateboarding, right? Though in the lead up to the Tokyo Olympics this last summer, there was so much to do to prepare for that, and then take into account the year delay, all the ridiculous COVID, restrictions. Not ridiculous in the sense that they were wrong, but there was just so much to do, very onerous process of making sure the athletes were tested and prepared and retested and on all the way until they got to Tokyo. It was so much to do that really that was all that we had the bandwidth to really accomplish up to then. In the background, I've been working on Skateboarding For All for close to a year now. And it's an initiative that finally helps us fulfill that original second part of our mission statement from back in 2003. As skateboarders at the time, I was on the board of directors for the organization. We understood that there was much more to do than just perform a technical role of running a national team. That wouldn't have been good enough. So but now we get to fulfill that second part of our mandate and create something to benefit the culture of skateboarding and skateboarders generally, not just the top 21 in the country. And so Skateboarding for All is our initiative that combines a number of programs, some of which we've been working on for some time, and other new ones like the Skate Clinic program and the instructor accreditation program we're working on right now. And the idea is that we use our position as the designated NGB and our participation in the Olympic movement to really be a beacon to kids and to parents and to those throughout the country who maybe haven't seen or haven't had the opportunity to look at or learn about or experience and try skateboarding, and really send them the message, a really simple message that, skateboarding is fun, skateboarding is a community, and you're welcome here. Whatever intimidation, whatever barriers they perceive or that maybe do exist between them and really having an opportunity to try it, we want to break those down and we want to open those doors. I mean, in LA, it was great because we got to partner with our friends at California Ramp Works, and they built that beautiful course. We were given a plot of dirt to run a skateboarding clinic. And so they literally had to create a plywood platform and then build some ramps and stuff, and did a beautiful job. And on top of that, they painted it in a nice sherbet palette, which was wonderful because the space just kind of glowed. And I think kids, just were attracted to come see what that was, and then obviously we're like, come here, put a helmet on, get in line here, hook up and connect with the instructors and go. So the Play LA clinic was our first Skateboarding for All clinic. And, you can plan all you want, but until you actually launch it, you don't really see what it's going to look like. And, I think the results of that day went well beyond what we expected. Having kids just lining up and ignoring the fact that there are 7 other sports available to them, all around the area. They were getting back in line to come back through and do more skateboarding. And to me, that was great because it shows that skateboarding still has that same magic that it did when I was 11 and first got on a skateboard, and I haven't gotten off. So here we are.
So you started the initiative in 2003. That's when the concept came. And inclusion wasn't a big pop word back then. What made that important to you?
Well, I think that's just natural to skateboarding. Skateboarding's always had a low barrier to entry in terms of getting involved, particularly since the 90s when street skating became the dominant form. Before that, it was ramps and pools, which were, structures that you needed to find them or build them. And so that created a bit of a barrier. But in the 90s, skateboarding really, in the late 80s and early 90s, skateboarding really opened up and took on, a street form, where you would, everybody always skated around to get from a skate ramp or to the skate park or to whatever. But it was only at that time when people started using what they found in the street as, sort of the skate park itself, and if you look at a skate park today, you'll see a lot of stair sets and rails and ledges and, different street type elements, because that's where skateboarding really grew, for the last 20 or 30 years. And the great thing about street skating is, other than the fact that, at that time there were no skate parks, we were forced to skate, where we weren't supposed to, but it really leveled the playing field. I mean, literally anywhere you had concrete or asphalt, you could skate. And almost like the more challenging, the less built out your community was, the harder you had to sort of work to find something that was skatable, and then the more impressive that was, in a sense. And so that was also the dawn of the video age. And so kids were able to start filming each other with camcorders and things like that. These days they use iPhones, but you started to see clips of people and videos from different parts of the country, different parts of the world, of kids, skateboarding in their own unique way, in all range of countries and cultures. And you really started to see how broad this was and could be. And so, it didn't matter whether you were rich or poor, in an urban area or semi-rural. If it was too rural and you only had gravel roads, and obviously that wasn't going to work. But if you had, pavement and some curbs and some benches or whatever, that was a skatable space. And the cost of a top level skateboard is $80 to $100. It's, it's not pocket change, but compared to some other sports, I mean, that's literally all you need. And then you go out your front door and there you go. So, I think it was in the 90s that you really started to see the ranks of professional skateboarders, who they were, the color of their skin, all that really, really change. And it just has always been, from that time on, has just been super normal that literally everybody skates. And, so the top skaters come from every part of the world and every culture and every country. So, that kind of a thing, that the inclusion part of skateboarding has always been there. It's just a matter of, even back in the 70s, you had Asian and Black skaters and Hispanic skaters who were all top names in skateboarding, because it didn't have any boundaries in that sense. And it was only in the 90s when it became really accessible, because you didn't have to have a skate park, that you really saw that come to full fruition.
You talk about the inclusion of diversity. Can you talk about the athletes who skate with disabilities?
Yeah, so a big part of USA skateboarding, and understanding that we have this sort of hold this unique position in this country anyway as the NGB, we looked at the diversity and the inclusion question, and it went beyond race and economic background, and we really saw, particularly through the lens of one of our board members, Oscar Loretto Jr., who's an adaptive skater, that within skateboarding, there are these amazing athletes, who have challenges. Some are blind, some are wheelchair athletes, the whole range. And they're so amazing and they're inspiring. And some of them are professionals. They have pro models out, but it's because you can watch them skate and it's beautiful what they do, and you almost don't look at the challenge they're facing. You just look at what they're doing. And that's, I think, maybe the beauty of skateboarding is when you enter like a skate park, you go to a skate spot, everybody there has a skateboard, or maybe they're in a chair and they're riding. And it's almost as though that becomes their foremost identity, in that context, is that we're all skateboarders, right? And then whatever else you are, that's secondary. And it just creates a common understanding, or just opens that communication channel amongst everyone present. And so I'm not a psychologist. I can't get into all the details of it. I just through my 40 plus years experience know that instinctively when I'm traveling, I could be anywhere in the world and I see somebody with a skateboard, like I'm way more inclined to just start a conversation or ask them about something than if with someone who isn't. Or if I just noticed that their shoes have a certain scuff on the side of it, or the telltale sign of a skater, I was like, it's an invitation to introduce yourself, or to ask them about themselves or whatever. And that goes back to the days when in the early 80s, when it was like there were very few skateboarders. And if you saw somebody with a skateboard, like, hey, wait a minute, who are you? What's your story? And that kind of persists for those of us of a certain age. But being a skateboarder, I think, is this dominant identity where it doesn't really matter what your other background is, or whatever challenges you might have. That's the defining factor for other skateboarders, is that you are one of us. And again, it's not about, oh, well, let's see what you can do. Let's see how good you are. It's how do you express yourself with it? It's about the form and the art of it than it is the technical, like, oh, can you ollie this high, or can you flip your board this many times? It's, well, let's see your art. Let's see you. It's I don't know, let's say dancing. It's a performance, what you're doing on your skateboard. And it's nothing to do really with technical. In a contest, I guess if you're going to be competing, you're going to be in the Olympics or whatever, then it comes down to technical ability partly, but also the artistry of it. The people that really stand out are the really high achieving technical skaters who have a flow and a beauty in the way they express their skating. And those are the people you're going to see winning the events, because they stand out. And so, at the sort of ground level for the rest of us, who aren't Olympians, that expression, that personality that comes through in skateboarding is really what stands out and what sort of galvanizes us and connects us with one another. And that sort of opens those doors to communicating and interacting. And I think that's really what it's about. The skateboard is a tool to connect with other skateboarders, right? So for us, championing the cause of adaptive skateboarding, USA Skateboarding, is at the forefront of the discussions and the effort to include skateboarding in the Paralympics, for example, and having adaptive sessions at our clinics and events. In 2022, we worked with the Grind for Life organization to include an adaptive division in their contest series. So there'll be adaptive skaters competing in the first year-long series ever, and just bringing focus to the concept of skateboarding for all. That, Like literally everybody can benefit from this. There are no barriers. There's no age limit. There's, just try it. Like for so many people, it's probably what they're looking for, the way it was for me and for, people I grew up with. And if you don't try it, you're not going to know. And so our goal is really to create those opportunities, educate people, share what we know about it, the beauty of it, and hopefully give them opportunities to come in and check it out and give it a try. And if not for them, maybe for your kids. And again, there are no barriers, and we really want to champion those opportunities and demonstrate that everybody can be a skateboarder.
Community is so important. And I think in our community, sometimes we feel like we're on the outside. Parents deal with so many other challenges, and a lot of the message that they receive is no, or you can't. I want parents to hear that you can and your children can. Just having that connection. And there are different organizations which I think are so fabulous, but it's not an inclusive model. It's still just a model where you're still going to be away from everyone. And having something in the community where everyone participates and it's about the beauty of their expression, that's so important for us to know that it's there for us. And that might sound silly to you, but a lot of things we're told are not for us and for our kids. So I think that's really beautiful and important. Anybody I've ever known in the skate community, I felt like it was always just a celebration. It wasn't in some things where you're like, oh gosh, they did that. It was a lot of like cheering others on and being inspired when someone, took it to the next level. And that's so important. I wanted to ask you about the is there somebody skating in the Paralympics, and about adaptive gear?
Yeah, so skateboarding is not currently in the Paralympics, and that's one of we're in the position to advocate for it. So certainly that's something we're striving to see, and having those conversations and trying to demonstrate through our own work what this could look like and what it would mean, to help run an adaptive division in a full contest series in 2022. I think will be a great step forward in that. I'm continuing to have adaptive sessions and adaptive inclusive skateboarding clinics. I think is going to be an important part of it. We're going to keep doing our work in that regard, and then we're going to try and advocate up the chain through the USOPC, et cetera, to see that happen. So that the world can see what these athletes are capable of. Within skateboarding, as I mentioned, there are plenty of sponsored adaptive athletes, some of whom have pro model skateboards in skate shops, and again, they're celebrated for what they can do and how they do it. I think in skateboarding, it's a challenging sport. It's a challenging endeavor. We're all adapting, right, as we learn to skate. And so I think we identify the struggle in one another as people who are skating at a certain spot or at a park. We understand that here's somebody who's at this level, and they're trying to get up to this level, and we see them trying and trying and trying. And when we see them have a victory, even if it's something rudimentary, maybe just rolling down an embankment for the first time and not falling off, we see that victory, and we recognize the struggle, I think, in ourselves, trying to do whatever we're doing at our level, whether it's higher or lower, and we get excited for them. And I'm guilty of like being at the skate park and doing my thing, and across the park I can see a kid, just kind of doing his own thing, her own thing, and you see them struggle, and then all of a sudden you see them land their trick or accomplish whatever they're doing, and you're just like, you start applauding from across the park and calling it out, and everybody's doing the same thing. It's almost like you thought we were just minding our own business, but we weren't. We're in everybody else's business, because it's like it's energy there, and you're feeding off it. And then that kid's like, what? Like somebody took notice, or or if you're skating with them and they're trying it, you're going to start giving them encouragement, maybe a tip here or there about like, oh, lean this way or try this or whatever. It's just, it's interactive, it's communal, and it's cool. And the same thing is like when you're struggling and you do it, suddenly people are smacking their boards on the coping and like, hooting and hollering, and you're like, oh, cool. It's like you're getting that feedback, and it's supportive. And I think you go to the skate park and you go, to the skate spots, and you almost go just to get that positive reinforcement. You're going to be supported there. It doesn't matter whether you're, top pro or struggling amateur or whatever. that's just skateboarding. Everybody's excited to be there, to be skateboarding, and excited to see other people achieve things, because it's almost like reassurance that, well, whatever you're struggling with, if you keep going, you'll get it too. So that's the atmosphere. And again, I think that's universal. And I think as an organization, USA Skateboarding, we really want to push the boundaries of what that means and what universal is. And I think historically skateboarding has been pretty racially diverse. I think there's much more we can do there. We have a DEI committee, and they're focused on ways we can achieve that too. But I think diversity and inclusion certainly goes well beyond that, and our adaptive efforts are part of that. And again, I think everybody can be a skateboarder. I mean, we even consider wheelchair athletes skateboarders. Technically they're WCMX, athletes, but they're part of us, and it's cool. And I love seeing our community grow, and just the boundaries of what it means to be a skateboarder, and who can be a skateboarder, just broaden. And for me, that as a skateboarder, that's been a huge gift to me to see that happening. I think with the opportunity with the Olympics and the exposure, and you're literally bringing skateboarding into the homes of billions of households around the world. I think we have a great opportunity now to really push the boundaries of that, and try and project out this message that everyone's welcome here, and literally everyone.
If all the world were a skate park.
It's the world we want. It's the world we push to advocate for. And I think of my son, but I think of all people that are often pushed to the outside and aren't included. And to see a space where everyone is included and everyone can be cheered honestly, not, oh, good job.
Right.
Like an honest.
Yeah. At our Play LA clinic, all the kids there that day were excited. The most excited kids were the kids in chairs, right? Like they'd go up over the hump thing, and they were going down the other side with their arms in the air, just like, woo, like they were fearless by the end of their session. The only people more excited than them were their parents over on the sidelines, just out of their minds, going nuts. And and that's something that I've seen obviously over the years, but that day really kind of galvanized that idea that it reverberates well beyond just the skating and the skaters. It goes out, it goes beyond the literally beyond the boundaries of the skate park, and it's energy, and it's infectious. And so I just have a firm belief that skateboarding has this magical ability to attract kids and inspire them in ways that nothing else can, right? There are certain kids who probably aren't attracted to traditional stick and ball sports. They're a little bit different, and they're looking for something that allows them to express themselves. Maybe it's an artistic slant, or what, I know what it is, but skateboarding provides that. And for me, I just know that as an 11-year-old in 1980, skateboarding was like at an ebb. It was big in the mid and late 70s, and it kind of went away. And somehow I picked it up when very few people were doing it, and it was such a godsend. I remember skating around my driveway at the time, thinking, "Wow!" Like I recognized that I found something, and then I connected with other skaters, and then found a local skate park. Like I found my people, right? And at that age, I was living with my mom. I was a latchkey kid, divorced household. Like to have something that every day kept me just focused, looking back was like a godsend, and it doesn't have to be that dramatic. For most kids, it could just be something that's fun for them to do, but it can be that sort of life-changing opportunity to find a focus and to express yourself, particularly in those teen years when you're just riddled with all kinds of angst and confusion and whatnot. So, and that's universal to all kids. And I don't think again, backgrounds or, challenges, notwithstanding, it's like, it can be that for anyone. And so I just feel blessed at this point in time to be in this position with USA Skateboarding to really share that idea. And and I share that from a personal point of view. I'm not a champion athlete, but I managed to be a skateboarder for 40 plus years, and stick with it and be part of that community. And all of my best friends to this day, all the people really close in my life, I met at the local skate park when I was 12, 13, 14 years old. We've stuck together. It's it's literally a life-changing thing. It can be. It doesn't have to be. It could just be a fun thing to do, but I just want to see kids have the opportunity and to try it and see what it means for them, and let them take to it and do it in their own way. And maybe they'll reinvent it. Maybe they'll come up with something brand new that everybody jumps on, and that's where skateboarding will go. We don't know, but it certainly changes and it morphs and it adapts and it is modified by the kids doing it today. And that's the key thing, is just give them that chance. So I'm very excited to see this, continue to grow and change and take on new forms, and be expressed through new people with new ideas, and as many as we can invite in. That's what we're going to do.
I want to go back to the day at the event. And when you're talking about the kids, the only people happier were the parents. And that's why I want to celebrate you and talk about your organization today, because we advocate for our children. We fight fights that were fought long ago, so we shouldn't be having to fight those fights. And when we are offered the opportunity, or our children are offered the opportunity to participate in something that we've never thought would be a possibility because of what we've been told or what is out there for us, and to see our child celebrate amidst other children in a diverse and inclusive environment, the joy that you bring, it's a gratitude that is, I don't know what words without being Alsapian. It's just such a profound gratitude and relief and celebration that we don't always get as parents of children with disabilities or differences. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about it. And also think about how you changed the neurotypical kids that were at your clinic that day by having the story include that diversity of disability or different abilities. It changes the story people are told. I know the difference in the story if I'm living it, but sometimes people have to see it. And it changes the dialogue and the narrative about disabilities that's been kind of passed down. And that's really what is needed, I believe, to change the opportunities for our kids. And I'm going to second what he said. The whole talk about a skate clinic and the skate park is, if I could have that in my child's classroom, if the world could be more like that, or every environment that we bring our child or introduce him to it, if every educator, if every provider, if society could have that mindset, for everyone, the world would be a better place. But just the opportunities would be met.
Well, that's the advocacy I see, is that building these little spots, which are skate parks or even places just on the street, that people are coming together and they're just borders. And they're not this that we define in society.
It's just like being a human. Like, you could actually substitute skateboarder for human and skate park for world. And I think that it would
and building these little places where that's happening, that on the hours of the day that these kids aren't skating, that they're changed from their experience at the park, and they go out into the supermarket, school, whatever, and the chances of them including are higher. The chances of them being inclusive and letting people into their lives that they may not have before those experiences. That is the advocacy I see, and that's why I said let's just go to a skate park today. I just want to check it out.
I think we've advocated so hard for the classroom. We're just going to start advocating for skate parks.
Yeah, I spent 16 plus years helping get skate parks built, and like you were talking about, the fighting and the struggle to advocate for the rights for your son, and it's a different kind of battle, but skateboarders have been advocating for their right to skate and for spaces for decades now. And I it's not the same fight, but I hear echoes of what you and your community are doing and what skateboarders have been doing. And I think your podcast gives them that forum, gives your community that forum to support one another, and to learn from one another, and to embolden one another and give each other courage to continue that. I guess your podcast in a sense is sort of the skate park for your community in a way.
That's such a compliment.
Yeah, that's a real compliment.
But I think it's important. I think it's critical that any identifiable group that faces a struggle they come together and they communicate and they share ideas and best practices and whatever, and really change the narrative of whatever their issue is. And I think skateboarders have done that for decades. I mean, when I started, early 80s, all the skate parks had closed down. There was nowhere left to skate, but everywhere I went, even though there were really no skateboarders, there were signs everywhere that said no skateboarding, no skateboarding. So I was, at a young teen, as a young teen, was just given this constant barrage of negative, impressions about basically who I am and what I'm doing. But in my heart of hearts, I knew that skateboarding is great. They just didn't, no one recognized it. And so I kind of set out at that age to change that, and I saw a future that had skate parks and where skateboarding was embraced and people were doing it all over. And so in a sense, I'm living in that future I envisioned, which is really fulfilling. And I think every group hopefully has that vision in mind of what should the world look like. I don't think we're quite there yet, but like this is 180 degrees different from where I started as a young skateboarder, where it was like they were literally trying to legislate us out of existence.
Well, it's exactly what I was going to say. We're a very similar age. And so I grew up in Louisiana where skateboarding wasn't a thing. I think it was early 80s. It probably started on the coasts first.
Yeah.
But the first introduction to skateboarding to me were the signs, no boarding, no skateboarding, no skateboarders. So it's like actually the person, right? Because I can see there could be a low percentage of disrespectful people that go, I'm just going to go skate here, where people don't want them skating because of the noise or scratching up something. Fine. But there's also just a public place to go where, yeah, you can just go there and skate, right? You should be free to do skating. But my first introduction to skateboarding was this negative thing that then you would have this perceived idea of what a skateboarder was. Was he or she rebellious and scratching up things and making a bunch of noise, like not the artistic part of it and the sport of it or the soulful part of it,
But it was hard to see the beauty in it when it had this sort of negative outlaw shell around it that had been built around it.
Yeah, that's the similarities that I see, is that this the misperceptions, and that's what we talk about all the time, is misperceptions and stereotypes.
Everybody has the opportunity and the ability to be a shining light. Sometimes you hear like, oh, it's not so much about what you say, it's how you make someone feel, right? And so as individuals, regardless of who we are and what challenges we may have, we can interact with each other and create an impression, right? And leave somebody with a feeling through what we say, what we do, a gesture across the room, whatever it is, right? And so we all have the ability to create that positive interaction and inspire people and make someone's day a little bit better, right? Like everybody can do that. And for me, it was like in skateboarding, like I recognized early on, like I wasn't a great skateboarder ever, but I got good positive interaction from people around me who were like professionals, right? And I have plenty of good friends who are, top professionals, and they're never hesitant to skate with me. Like it's not like I'm not welcome to skate with them. It's like that's never been a thing. If you're if you have a skateboard, skate, take your turn, and everybody takes their turn, and whatever. And so we all have that ability to choose to be that shining light and in someone else's day or life. And it's not about our abilities. It's not about what we say or how we look or whatever. It's what impression do we leave? What emotion do we convey? How do we make other people feel? And I think in skateboarding, it's just like you come into it knowing this is this great thing that you really enjoy. So you come in with a positive attitude, and that just comes out of you. It just spreads around you. And if everybody in that scenario is doing that, then everybody's going to be lifted, right? And so I went to the skate park on Friday night, after a long week at work, and I get there and I'm in the corner where the bowl is, and I can just see. And this was Friday night, when quote unquote everything's going on, but that park was packed with kids and a few adults and everybody, boys, girls, whatever. And I'm just like, wow, where would these kids be if this park wasn't here, on a Friday? Like they're all here skating, and super positive. And next thing I look up and a friend of mine walks up. He's like, hey, what's up? Like I hadn't seen him in a while. And it's like, it was just awesome. And I realized that it's been awesome for my whole life in skateboarding, and that'll continue to be. He and I would hang out at the skate park, 30 years ago. And we just sat there talking, and the same as we would all that time back in the 80s, or whatever. And it's such a gift to be able to still do that, to be somewhere, have somewhere, and just have those opportunities to interact and meet some new people and that kind of a thing. And that's what skateboarding's about. It's just about doing your thing and experiencing other people do their thing. And it's an exchange, and you come away with it with this impression, this feeling that you get from others. And hopefully you've conveyed the same thing to them, a little bit better than where you were at the beginning of the day,
I'm so happy for this conversation this morning, because I hope people see the parallels of community and inclusion. I wanted to talk a little bit about adaptive skateboards that are out there. Are there, and also the cost is a little bit more expensive. Are there any programs that provide skateboards or help with the cost of skateboards? And also, are there any less expensive skateboards that you could recommend?
Yeah. So I don't know of any adaptive specific skateboards, but there are skateboards of all sizes and designs that, depending on the individual and their particular challenge, they can be fitted for a different type, bigger skateboard, smaller skateboard that needs to be sat on, that kind of a thing. And then there are a number of organizations that, both provide, opportunities to skate and also equipment. And I can put some of those together for you in the links. So yeah, I mean, it again, it depends on your part of the country. A lot of these are smaller, local, regional organizations. And there are certainly cheaper skateboards. The skateboards I talk about are boards you can get at a proper, professional skate shop, and they're meant for like, sort of tricks and professional level skating. So you can certainly get like entry level boards at department stores, sporting goods stores. They're fine to start on, and those would range probably around $40 to $60, something like that. And then there's also, like if you go to the skate park, there's I don't know anyone, my age or around my age who isn't at the skate park with a trunk full of old equipment that's just waiting to like find that one kid with the board that's all beat to crap. And you're going to go out and grab a board and bring it out, and it may be a little bit used, and but they're happy to take it. And so there's that stuff that happens too quite a bit. And most local skate shops, I think, are happy to work with people if it's depending on what their ability is and what they need. And just if you see a legitimate local skate shop, go in and talk to the manager. I would say, it's like they run that shop. They're not they don't run that shop because they're turning huge profits. They run it because they love skateboarding and they love seeing kids skateboard, particularly kids coming in and getting their first skateboard. So a parent that needs some help, I think just walk into your local skate shop and just talk to them, see what they can do. Oftentimes they'll have something behind the counter, that a board that like one of their team riders just took apart, and maybe it's in perfectly good shape. And like, here's a board, we get some wheels, like I can't think of a single skate shop that wouldn't go out of their way to try and help somebody out like that. So that's just person to person. In terms of programs, there's a few out there. They seem to come and go. So I'll try and put together a list for you for the show notes.
That would be great. That would be great to have just, like you said, a great example for life, but also once you are on a board where there's wheels underneath you, which I feel like that sometimes just in my everyday, it gets a little bit scary. And so, just having that guidance as far as a piece of equipment and just starting, like you're just saying, just start, right? Just start where you are. A board, some pads, and a helmet, and you can go out there. It's honestly, as far as exercise go, it's a great core builder.
Balance
is huge. It also does great things for the brain, for the cognitive ability. Once we get our kids out there exercising, there's cognitive benefits that we see, the ability to retain information. There's a communication there. There's a socialization. There's so many great things that I know that are there. I just didn't realize I don't think I realized that this conversation was going to be so rich with humanity and just what we strive for as far as inclusion goes. I didn't realize that.
I mean, that's skateboarding. It looks like a big business. It looks like a big Olympic sport, but it's a bunch of people who happened upon this, that discovered it for themselves and have been trying to work to build it and share it, our whole lives. It's a thing you do, but it's an experience you have, and it's a way, ultimately, not so much to perform and do things, but a way to connect with other people, and that's what it's been for me. And I think that's really at the core of it. Everything you see in terms of the photos and the video and the great feats, physical feats that the professionals do, that's almost the byproduct of them being part of a community of other skateboarders to inspire them. And in their case, they have great ability, so they're inspired to express themselves in these grandiose ways, with these huge feats. But 9 out of 10 of them, I think, do that not because there's a paycheck at the end of the day. They do it because it's in them, and they need to come out. Like they see something that they think they can do, and they just need to do it. They need to satisfy themselves. So again, that inspires the rest of us to just pursue our own path with skateboarding and with each other on our parallel but separate trajectories. So we're all on this earth at this particular time in space for some cosmic reason. I don't, I'm not a religious person, but I think that there's order in the universe. And I think that the fact I'm on the podcast, that we're talking about skateboarding, it's not so much an accident as it is part of some sort of cosmic convergence that we're all here. And so I think our goal as people is really to be able to connect. And I've not found anything in my life that gave me a better ability to connect than skateboarding and meeting people. And I've literally traveled the world working for Skateboarding magazine, and meeting people who would literally point me out of a crowd because I'm carrying a skateboard, and next thing you know, we're best friends. And I've circumnavigated the globe. I was in Vladivostok, Russia in 1992, and these kids just rolled up to me on their little rudimentary skateboards, like, stop, who are you? Where are you from? And next thing you know, I'm skating with them for the next 3 days all over town and their spots. And just amazing that they had their own version of skateboarding. This would be pre-internet, but they just pulled me in. I was part of their crew for those few days, and it was beautiful. And again, it's a gift to have this in my life. And I, through USA Skateboarding, I'm just blessed to be able to make it my work to share it, literally share it with everyone. That's really our goal with Skateboarding for All. And as we roll out the initiative and try and get these events and qualified instructors in more places to do this.
Can we talk about the clinics that are available?
Sure.
We can also provide those links because I want to really talk about the event that's coming up as well.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have any programs right now that are available or any clinics? And are they in different areas of the country or just here in California?
So the Play LA event was like sort of our pilot, and we learned quite a lot there. So we don't have a series of those events at the moment. We're just now rolling out the initiative, fundraising for it, et cetera, to grow that. We are, however, through our position as the NGB, we're able to reach out and create, strategic partnerships across the country amongst national institutions and with municipalities like City of LA, whom we're working with right now to develop a recreation program that would offer this through their 29 skate parks throughout the area. And one of our partnerships is with the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, and we do an event with them called InnoSkate. And InnoSkate it's two things. One is an online curriculum that we're working on that will teach STEAM curriculum with a skateboarding theme, and so kids can go online and take these lessons, and teachers can use this to assign to students. And so it has the brainiacs at the Smithsonian working on the curriculum part of it, and USA Skateboarding working on infusing that into skateboarding themes to show how skateboarding and science work together. And that'll be available, we're hoping, in the spring. But we're also working with the Smithsonian on a series of events called InnoSkate, and they're outdoor festivals. We currently have 2 planned in 2022 in Colorado and South Dakota, and that's an in-person event that has interactive booths and activities to learn about skateboarding and the science and the innovations in skateboarding. And then there's always a skate clinic associated with that and learn to skate opportunities there as well. So we're hoping to expand that, and that'll be more of our sort of in-person presence. But then through the instructor accreditation program, that's where we really hope to see a proliferation of these kinds of opportunities across the country, where we can empower local communities based on our experiences with what we learned through working with the city of Los Angeles, and expand that to be able to work literally across the country and create these opportunities for kids through local instructors. So it's literally rolling out, and we're doing our fundraising for that right now, and really trying to give that program and the whole initiative overall, so for Skateboarding for All, some legs to expand and really be a much bigger part of the organization moving forward, showing that skateboarding and USA Skateboarding is much broader than just the Olympics. It's about the community.
Can I ask you, when you're working with the Smithsonian, with the brainiacs at the Smithsonian, as they create this curriculum, I'm hoping they already do, but to have in their mind a diverse learning field and the supports, like for our children, like for my son, I can't say our children, but for my son, front loading, shorter, less abstract, these kind of accommodations allow him to access a curriculum. So that might be something, because you're an inclusive organization, that you've already had the conversation.
Yes.
Have you already had that conversation?
We have the curriculum is designed to address students at different levels. It's done in conjunction with the Smithsonian Spark Labs, so they've been doing this in other areas for a long time, and so they're kind of leading that part of the content. But for sure, there's going to be components that are geared for K through 6, junior high and high school level, and so there's going to be different sort of levels of each curriculum, and it's going to be geared for different groups. So I can't speak to the details of all of that because that's really, they're guiding that part of it. We're more involved on the content side and making it relevant and having the skateboarding part of it be authentic and really connect with the lessons. So, but yeah, definitely having various levels of instruction is part of the online curriculum.
If the conversation of neurodiversity became part of it and how to create the supports to actually allow it to be accessible for a neurodiverse community,
Mm.
that because I see like the skating part and that inclusive of the physicality,
Mhm.
a lot of the things that we're on the outside of as a community is education.
Yeah.
So if that was part of the conversation, that's such a for someone like the Smithsonian to acknowledge and make that just part of its inclusive agenda, that would
Yeah.
be groundbreaking. That would be.
Well, I'll guarantee you that neurodiversity is going to be part of our next conversation with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Promise you that
Thank you.
much.
We appreciate that. That means a lot because that's how we change it. If it's just something that is just what we expect to be there, it's changes the world because it's not really the conversation that is actually in place right now. You saw those parents cheer when their child in a wheelchair was able to participate. It's that same for a parent to be able to show up and know that their child has been considered and that the supports are already there. It's not something that they have to bring or fight for. It's not an extra conversation that they have to have. All of these things which create a non-included feel. If that's something that's already there, it's like you said, it's the ripple effect that just changes.
It builds a
the
template
fiber.
for future projects,
And it
as
changes
well.
the fiber and fabric of that individual, the people who create it, the conversation that's out there.
Hmm.
Tell the Smithsonian to be more like a skate park.
Yeah. Well, when I was, working on skate park advocacy, there were a lot of conversations early on about, well, this is a skate park, so it should be skateboarding specific, and we shouldn't allow bikes because bikes tear up the coping and this and that. They're steel and they're heavy and they mess up the skate park. And my response and the response of everyone around me was like, well, we've been excluded for decades, and now we're advocating and having success in creating spaces, where we're welcome. Why would we then slam the door on the next group? Just because that community isn't organized the way we are, and they're, a decade behind us in their advocacy, why can't we just open the door for everyone? And we stopped referring to skate parks as skateboard parks. We started referring to them as all-wheel parks. And whether it's a bike or inline skates or scooters, or skateboards, it's a space for anyone on wheelchairs, right? I mean, let's just create something that's different from everywhere outside of it, right? Again, it's let's literally in concrete build that world that we envisioned as kids, and I don't think that skateboarding and skateboarders set out to, let's create an inclusive community or whatever. We were just trying to create skateboarding. And as an organization, USA Skateboarding, now we recognize that that's an important, almost accidental component of skateboarding. And so we're striving to preserve and to kind of highlight that and ensure that it continues and it continues to evolve beyond, inclusivity that goes beyond where it is right now. We're in a unique position to do this. I think Skateboarding for All is really going to help us promote that, and it's something we're dedicated to. And we have a few years in between each Olympic Games, so it'll keep us busy for sure. I know, and again, it's for me a great joy to be in this position to be able to work on this and to fight that fight.
Would you like to talk about the event that's happening on December 11th?
Oh, so December 11th, we're hosting our first it's USA Skateboarding 2021 wrap party. And I mean, it's been such a remarkable year for skateboarding and for our organization and for our team. And so we're bringing everybody together in Carlsbad, California for an event, limited in-person capacity, but we're going to have unlimited online webcasts so people can register for free and watch it if they're not in the area, or get a ticket and come see us in Carlsbad. And we can have the team together and basically have them talk about their different experiences from our virtual national championships at the beginning of the year, where we had kids literally from all part of the country send in videos of themselves skating, and like literally everybody got to participate in the national championships. Just send us in a 45-second video clip, unedited, of you skating your local spot or your local park. And some kids made it, all the way to quarterfinals, like kids you never heard of. And it was really cool. And so after the semifinals, the top 8 were flown to California to compete in person in very controlled, safe environment with social distancing, et cetera. but it really worked out pretty well. And so we're looking at maybe continuing, at least for the first couple of rounds, keeping it virtual. And it just eliminates the need for people to travel. It opens the door, it just lets more people participate. And so that was great. And so we'll talk about that. The World Championships in Rome, where Jagger Eaton, a member of our park team, competed in the street World Championships and qualified for Tokyo in street skateboarding when he was on the US national team as a park skateboarder. And then in Tokyo, of course, he won the bronze medal in street skateboarding. So there are these great stories like that. And then of course, Tokyo is going to be the big story because skateboarding's first Olympics, and how did that go, and where do we go from here, kind of a thing. And so it'll be a really great first time the team's back together, and I think a great way to end the year, and it'll be a great way to celebrate with our friends and supporters. We'll have some skate legends attending as well, and music by Ray Barbie, who's a professional skater and an amazing musician, and just a really great fun party. And we're looking forward to that to kind of end the year, and to highlight Skateboarding for All and really get ready for 2022 when we really hit the ground running.
We can include a link to the wrap party here. If you're virtual, it's free. It's free to watch and be inspired. December 11th. And if you're in Carlsbad, and if there are tickets,
you can get to Carlsbad.
If you can get to Carlsbad, and if there are tickets available by the time you hear that, they're $25. And this money goes to support USA Skateboarding and the Skateboarding For All initiative. When I initially met you and I saw this, and there was one girl who was skateboarding, and she had Down syndrome. Our son has Down syndrome. And she was just skateboarding like everyone else. And I have to tell you, a lot of times we go to different events and it's not like, hey man, no, try it. You haven't had a chance. Try it and I'm going to support you. And I think that's the difference, because that's what we ask for in life. That's what we want in the classroom. That's what we want for education, is just support him and watch what he'll do. And really the mindset of this entire event was just, we're going to support you so you can reach that potential, show what you can do and be you. And there was one girl, and she was skating, and she was like every skater I've ever met in my life. She was there. She did it. I think she kind of like popped off the board for a second and then jumped back on. And it was just like, I'm going to support you and then you're going to get it. And I witnessed that. And that's when I was just like, I need to talk to whoever is in charge of this, because I need for parents to know this is here, for individuals to know this is here, and for that opportunity to be there again for another inclusive activity that we may have thought that wasn't for us. It was just really beautiful to see, because it was everything that you've spoke about. It was everything that we want in the world, and the connections that make life and this world a better place. And I think that's why I was so drawn to you.
Thank you. And I appreciate your invitation to come on, and I didn't know what to expect, but this has been an amazing conversation, and I appreciate the opportunity.
This has been such a delightful conversation, beyond my expectations, which I guess that's what the whole thing about inclusion is going beyond expectations. So thank you.
Please follow us on Twitter at If We Knew Then Pod, and you can drop us a line on our Facebook page at If We Knew Then Pod, or visit our website, ifweknewthen.com, to send us an email with questions and comments. And you can join our mailing list there and get alerts of future podcast episodes. All these links will be added to this episode's show notes. Thank you again, and we look forward to you joining us on the next episode of If We Knew Then.
Thank you.